Hi, I'm Mike Greiner, a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you share my concerns, then maybe you could like this video and subscribe to this channel and join me in my effort to maybe influence things a little bit in the direction that we want to, a more liberal, progressive, just agenda for our country. I felt a need to record a special video today in response to news I read that the Biden administration is paring back its infrastructure proposal in a desperate effort to try to get Republican support for it. And the message I have for Joe Biden and the other Democrats is to stop trying to attract Republican supporters. Trying to negotiate with Republicans at this point is something akin to trying to negotiate with terrorists. And the more that you try to do so, the more that they're going to try to hold your feet to the fire and try to take advantage of you. And that's exactly what Mitch McConnell and the Republicans have done up until now. My hope was that Biden had learned this lesson after the experiences that he had in the Obama administration. But apparently we are still on this wild effort to try to woo Republican supporters and pass policies that as a result are not really what we need, but instead are some kind of watered down version of something that really isn't enough to do what we need to do. And as a result, then the Democrats get blamed later on when we don't achieve the success that we'd been hoping for. So my message is stop doing this. I can't believe that we have to still be talking like this after the experiences we had in the Obama administration. Mitch McConnell and the Republicans cannot be trusted to be negotiators in good faith. And as a result of that, we need to move forward with the agenda of items that we can pass without them, much the way the Republicans did. We need to stop acting like Democrats and being afraid to do anything and act a little bit more like Republicans and push forward the agenda that we believe in. This is what Republicans did with the huge tax giveaway to the wealthy that Republicans were so intent on that they passed during the Trump administration. We have the opportunity to take that same approach called budget reconciliation as a way to pass this with only 50 votes in the Senate, rather than having to wait for us to somehow water it down and reduce the tax increases that are necessary to pay for it, and to reduce the amount of infrastructure that's going to be done, and to reduce the other programs that are going to be helped with this proposal in an effort to try to somehow make the Republicans comfortable with it, when really they don't want to be comfortable with it. They don't want to get along with us. They don't want to try to cooperate with us. For those of you who need some background, here's the problem. The problem is that the Senate has a rule called the filibuster rule. You've probably heard about it. What the filibuster rule means is that you need 60 senators basically to pass anything. And it's not just 60% of the senators who are present at the time. It's literally 60 senators. So in the case of the January 6th investigation commission, that was blocked by a filibuster, even though less than 40 Republicans voted against it. But yet, because of the fact that the Democrats didn't have 60 votes, it didn't matter that we had more than 60% of the votes cast. This rule dates way back. It's been used in history in the Senate as a way to block things that the minority don't like. For almost 100 years, the filibuster was used to block, if you can believe it, anti-lynching legislation from passing the Senate, which only passed just a couple of years ago. So it gives you an idea of the power of this rule. Now, the filibuster is essentially being willing to stand on the floor of the Senate and just talk and talk and talk and never give up control of the floor until your opponents give up. An example of that we're probably all familiar with is in the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, where Mr. Smith stands there and talks and talks and talks to block some legislation on the Senate until he receives an overwhelming number of letters and telegrams in support of his position. That is the filibuster in action. But the problem is, a number of years ago, they passed a rule that does no longer require the senators to actually stand on the floor to filibuster, to talk and talk and talk and literally control the agenda of the Senate until the other side gives up. If that were the case, then probably we could let them talk and talk and talk until they talked out and then pass the legislation with 50 votes. The problem is that literally we've passed this rule where one senator can simply submit a slip of paper saying, I filibuster this legislation. And upon receipt of this slip of paper, then suddenly you need to get 60 votes to essentially vote for what's called cloture, C-L-O-T-U-R-E, which means that you're going to stop debate. You're going to stop debate on this item. So you can see where a lot of the language that describes the filibuster rule comes from the idea of somebody standing on the floor of the Senate speaking until literally there are enough senators who say enough is enough, we're going to vote to shut this guy up. Because that's literally how the what cloture used to be. Now cloture means that any senator can say at any time, we don't want something to happen, and all of a sudden you need 60 votes to get it done. Now, one exception to this rule is what are called reconciliation bills. Now, traditionally, they've been passed once a year. Not too long ago, the Senate parliamentarian ruled that under certain circumstances, we could actually pass another reconciliation bill this fiscal year. Negotiations have dragged on to the point that it's ridiculous. And we are now getting to the point where we're getting close to the next fiscal year, which starts in October. So even if we fall apart in our negotiations with the Republicans, and even if we decide that we can't make the amendments the way that the Senate parliamentarian has ruled that we have to, then we can just wait until October, which is just a few months away at this point, and pass a huge bill that includes both the infrastructure as well as also the Families Act legislation, which I believe in total would come to about $4 trillion in spending and would include things like tax increases on the wealthy, getting rid of some of the tax giveaway from the Trump era, increasing corporate taxes, all kinds of things that we as progressives favor, and just getting it done. And instead, we're dragging our feet, going through this ridiculous process where the Republicans are literally blocking us from getting something done, and where we're basically begging them for scraps of what really has to be done. Just stop now. Enough is enough. Sure, we'd have to do some negotiations within the Democratic conference to get everybody on board, including the more moderate senators, Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona. But that being said, there certainly is enough support for a major infrastructure and Families Act bill supported just by Democrats that would deal with some of these reforms to the tax legislation, that would deal with some of the inequalities that were created as a result of the past tax legislation, especially the Trump tax legislation. And we'd be able to pass something without Republican support at that point. So my attitude is enough is enough. Stop trying to negotiate with terrorist Republicans and start trying to put together legislation that will pass via reconciliation in October with just 50 Democratic votes. Now, I want to make one more point about the filibuster, by the way, and this is something that is an irony that I think a lot of people have heard possibly, but might not entirely understand. The filibuster rule was put in place by just 50 votes. Just 50 votes could change that rule. So here we have this rule that makes it so that we have to have 60 votes to pass any legislation, and yet it would only require 50 votes to get rid of that rule entirely. Up until now, there has been this attitude that we don't really want to do that because eventually the Senate's going to turn over, and at that point, the filibuster rule is going to protect us as much as it protects them now. But we know that that's no longer the case because when the Republicans were in charge, whenever there was something they wanted to pass that the filibuster rule blocked them from passing, they just got rid of the filibuster. So enough is enough. We need to stop playing footsie with the Republicans. My opinion is that we should get rid of the filibuster rule in its entirety with 50 votes at this point. I mean, amend it so at least they can no longer just filibuster by signing a slip of paper. Make them stand on the floor of the Senate and talk. Make it so that they have to actually hold the floor. And if they can't, once they're done, then we can vote with 50 votes for the legislation that is really necessary. At this point, though, we have where terrorist Republicans hold us hostage, where even with 50 votes, we're unable to pass anything. The time has come for a change, so I'm calling on Democrats finally, and again, I can't believe I'm saying this after the experiences we had in the Obama administration, finally, please Stop negotiating with the Republicans on infrastructure. Stop negotiating with Republicans on taxes. Get ready to pass a reconciliation bill in October. And please, please, please amend the filibuster rule to make it so that it can no longer block legitimate legislation supported by the vast majority of Americans. So, if you agree with me or if you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the comments below. I've written articles about this issue and others in my Medium feed, so I'll add a link to that in the description below as well, and you're welcome to go peruse that and maybe even follow me there as well. But again, please like, subscribe, and let's try to build this channel up into something that hopefully becomes a place that we can talk about the issues that we really care about. So until next time, let's hope for some progress on these progressive issues, and I will talk to you later.